Farm for Profit Podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm for Profit Podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm for Profit Podcast.
Well, Corey, now that you're playing on your phone, you'd understand what the importance of a good battery is.
Oh, yeah.
Mine's lagging, but of course I don't upgrade my phone every year like you do.
It still lags.
Still lags?
Mm-hmm.
You got to put the low power mode on.
I don't do that.
You don't? You just let it go dead.
Yeah. I don't have time for that.
Now imagine if that's in your tractor.
Ooh.
And you got to hit low power mode. It's almost like limp mode. And you're trying to go through the field on only your battery.
No thanks.
You're not looking forward to electrification of off-road vehicles?
I am a fan of electric motor technology and how it's instantaneous power on demand right now. I'm not a fan of the longevity and the battery technology and the infrastructure that we have to support it.
Well, our goal in this episode is to dive a little bit deeper, and we've got Sherry Jones here with Steinbauer. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You made such an impression on us the first time we did this interview that we're all wearing matching outfits.
We are. We're super colourful today.
We are. I don't think we got any of those.
No, this is bin chicken. This is another limited edition from
Bing chicken?
Bin chicken.
Oh.
So you can see the birds here.
Yeah.
They're like our version in Australia of your trash pandas.
Trash pandas.
Oh,
the
a
raccoon.
bin
It's like
chicken.
a bin
I
chicken.
get it.
It's
So
like a crane or a stork or something.
like a-
Well,
Looks
it's
like.
an ibis, and they're just nasty. They're like rats with wings,
Eating
Really?
French fries out of a
Yeah.
trash can.
pretty
A
much.
bin.
We got cranes. What are those cranes that we have? They call them ribeye of the sky. They're good tasting.
Oh,
You
I'd
don't want to eat one of these.
not where I thought you were going at
No,
all.
this is kind of like swamp food. If you
Yeah.
roadkill if you grilled that up.
And then we've had a lot of trumpeter swans around lately. Have you seen those?
I have.
Those are big. Those
What are those?
They're these huge white birds. Pull it up, Jamie.
What is the design on my shirt?
Paisley.
I'm Paisley. Why are you touching me like that?
That's a paisley, isn't it? Isn't that a paisley?
I can't. It is paisley. I can't remember what that one's called. I've got so many of these shirts now.
I kind of feel like this should be on the bottom of a skateboard.
It should. This is one of my favorites because you've got kangaroos and sharks and some of the stuff that'll kill you.
This is one of my favorites. The
fabric.
lighter, yes, the lighter material.
This is why you were touching him, Corey.
He's just-
Touching the paisley.
Yeah.
yes.
And I've never had a shirt that only buttons to here.
This one goes all the way down.
Oh, it goes on.
Yeah, some of them go all the way down. Some of them are just
Is
a half
this an
button.
Australian thing?
It's more so for what we call you blue collar, your contractors basically.
Yeah.
A lot of the times the buttons are not the best. For a mechanic, if you're bending over
Sure.
inside, you get the buttons caught. It can be a safety issue. So a lot of the half buttons are pretty popular from a work shirt point of view.
Yeah.
It's like a safety thing.
So
We
these
should-
are
yeah.
Trade Mutt shirts.
That
And we're-
they
And we're
are.
going to do some more information on Trade Mutt down the road.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like. Oh, there's a flap.
I'm not showing my boob, I promise.
Now they have to go.
She's
watch
just
YouTube.
got it custom. There's
Now-
there's no
They have
fabric
to
back
go
there.
watch
Just
YouTube
nipple.
now. That's right. It's what was that Super Bowl halftime show? Justin Timberlake.
yeah, that was
and
Janet Jackson.
Janet Jackson.
She said she
Not
doesn't like
Janet
football.
Jackson.
she had a Trade Mutt shirt on.
It's not that I don't like. It's not that I don't understand it. Why you have to change people all of the time.
That's right.
If
Just
they get
play-
paid that much
Just
money, they should be able
real
to do
men
both
should be able to
things.
play all things.
Yeah, real men play rugby.
Yeah. I've never played rugby. I know a few guys that do. I would have loved to have tried it, but it never was a thing. Kind of like hockey and what's the other
Shuffleboard.
Not shuffleboard. Well, it's like shuffleboard, but
Like
with
curling?
Curling.
Yes.
Yes. I want to play that.
It's cold enough outside. We could have a
We
crack.
could do that.
I want to try that.
it would actually be a good warm day for curling in Iowa right now.
Yeah.
No.
So,
Yes.
give us just a. So we're gonna have a full show on this, but give us a 20-second deal. What is Trade Mutt?
So Trademark was started by a couple of Australian. We call them tradies, which is your version of contractors. Who lost a friend through suicide, and basically no one knew that he needed help. So they wanted to raise awareness in an industry where men, you all suck at talking about your feelings, let's be honest, to make it okay. And one of the things that was paramount with that was that a conversation starter. So the louder the shirt, which is why we're all really colourful.
Yeah.
And I wear these all over the US, and people in airports, in the supermarket, at the Quick Star today, the lady's like, "Oh my God, I love your shirt. What do you mean a conversation? About what?" And it kind of prompts that icebreaker. And the offshoot of that is that they have TX, which is a mental health support line. You can text, you can call, and it's really nice that I think we're all in the same boat. I've been to too many funerals and buried too many friends and farmers because they didn't feel that they could talk about it with somebody that understood where they were coming from. And so this is the thought process and the drive behind the Trademutt brand is to really push that forward and to make it okay. And you can do it, like, it's so nice. My boys have used the service. They can text in. So it's, the younger generation, they may not feel comfortable to have a conversation over the phone, but they can have a text. So I think it's a really nice thing. And other than the fact that we look really cool and bright in a very gloomy Iowa day, it's just a nice way to give a nod to all of the guys out there who think that they can't talk to somebody, or maybe they're embarrassed to talk to somebody. You
If
don't
I
have
can
to
wear
be.
this shirt in public, you can send a text message.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. Where do they come up with the designs?
They have a really cool design team that come up with a concept, and then from the concept comes the design. So I think I think that's Austin Flowers, maybe. I think that's what that one's
Austin
called.
Flowers. How cool would
I
it
don't know.
be if
Your
they
palm trees have underwear. You see that? Your palm trees are wearing underwear.
Yeah, it is. Nice.
Well, I think they're actually supposed to be board shorts,
Oh.
and the pelican has a knife and fork.
How cool would it be if they let us design one for American agriculture?
Yes.
How cool would that be?
I had a very nice conversation at Uchi with one of the guys from John Deere who was very fascinated. He came by the booth every day to see what I was wearing.
That's fun.
And yeah, when I got up to be auctioned off, I had on a shirt which is called Up Pooh Creek. And it's a white shirt, and it has farming, different things on it, and he thought that was pretty cool. So, it's something small. It's a small thing, but it really makes a big impact, and I like that. I work in a man's industry, and
Sure.
I'm a little bit different. I have weird conversations with men. I've had weird conversations with you boys all the time. So,
Pretty much anything
not
we
weird
talk
anymore.
about's weird, right?
well, you did see my nipple, so
That's right.
No, we didn't.
it is.
Did you see the trumpeter swan? Did you see that?
Nipple, trumpeter swan.
That's a trumpeter swan.
That's huge.
Yeah.
You could put a saddle on that and ride it.
Just like her. I'm going to stop with that.
Yeah, they got to be one of the biggest
That's
biggest
massive.
birds.
Now I'm just going to shop. While you guys talk, I'm just going to go through the Trademutt website.
Oh, they have short sleeves.
And,
Yeah, they have short sleeves.
dive
Okay.
into that.
And they have, limited editions come out. Yeah, there you are. You are Austin Flowers.
I am.
Yeah,
Party
and you're party
animals.
animals. That suits you so much.
We are. Look at us go. Okay, let's get into electrification of off-road vehicles, because you've had a lot of exposure to this over the last 2 years.
Yes.
First of all, your connection with Steinbauer. We've got an episode that really outlines that. We don't need to go over it again. But if our listeners aren't familiar with what Steinbauer does, let's remind them.
So we manufacture and distribute an aftermarket plug and play to give farmers more horsepower and torque for agricultural machinery. We focus mainly in the US market on agriculture and construction machinery off-road. The nice thing is it's downstream, it's plug and play. If you sell your machine and that particular module can be moved to your new piece of machinery, you can just unplug it and move it over. It's completely safe. We don't mess with any of the manufacturer's safety settings, so this is really important. We're seeing more and more of that now, that a lot of guys are having unfortunate incidences with cheaper products or people that are not so experienced in what they're doing, and this gets really expensive. So we've always had that principle of plug and play, be safe, The manufacturers know what they're doing with their safety side, so we leave that alone. That's up to them. We have our own office staff, everything in the US. We are US based out of Michigan. I spend a lot of time in Iowa. We love the Iowegians.
Heck yeah. If you want to get brushed up on that, that was our March 6th from 2023 episode 261.
So basically almost a year ago.
Yep.
Farm machinery show.
Yep.
Yeah,
And we're not going to be there this year.
that's right. Be out in California.
We'll talk about that later.
So you being involved in that part of the industry has allowed you access to some meetings, some planning conversations, some panels. What would you say has gotten you into the electrification of off-road vehicle conversations?
So we've always been very focused on what's coming and what's new in the market. We have to look forward, otherwise you're always behind. So
Right.
we're always looking forward. And about 10 years ago, I decided that we needed to join the American Equipment Manufacturers Association, because this is where all of the big manufacturers get together and discuss what's up and coming, regulatory changes that are going to affect the industry. And as part of that, I also do meetings. I'm always joining meetings for California Air Resources Board, because California really leads the way here in the US as far as emissions changes, agree with them or not, practical or not, but that's the driving force behind it. So I'm very conscious of staying ahead of it. And a couple of years ago, there has been this massive push for electrification within farming and off-road. And given our exposure to the vehicle industry in Europe, I was interested to see what course this would take in the US. The only way I can do that is to educate myself and sit in hours and hours of meetings, listening to people, listening to experts, engine manufacturers, equipment manufacturers. So as much as I can, I jump in on these meetings so I know the direction of where things are heading.
Why do we let California, a state, one of 50, lead the way?
Unfortunately, the regulatory framework here in the US, the EPA, are still relying for emissions-based regulatory framework. They're still relying on air conditioning regulatory framework from when air conditioners first came into cars.
Really?
Yeah. It's Memo 1A, I think they call it. And it's that old. And
there's room for Memo 1B.
Well, we're probably at 1Z already, like is where they should be up to. But it's just unfortunate that the political machine is just so inconsistent, and everyone's jumping over everybody else for however long they're in term, and nothing really changes. So California, obviously we all know that they had a pretty massive smog issue. They took it, and good on them, they took it upon themselves to clean things up, because diesel was disgusting, the emissions were terrible. They took it upon themselves to lead. Unfortunately, just from my point of view, with all of the dealings that we've had across the board, it's been left up to California now. So from a Steinbauer point of view, we wanted to get our modules tested in California to prove that we don't change the emissions of a machine. But what most people aren't aware is that the emissions are actually tested in a lab on an engine that is not what the farmer receives in their field. That's how I want to test. I want to test a product exactly how the farmer receives it, not in a sterile environment with high performance diesel for me this is two very different things. Mm-hmm. If I want to test how the farmer receives it.
Right.
And this is where California has just been allowed to run the gauntlet and set standards that really, maybe, yes, they apply in California, but they don't translate over the whole country. It's not always realistic, the goals that they're setting.
So as you sit in on these meetings, where's electric motors going to come into agriculture first? What's your gut feeling there?
They have already started. I was in a farm in Southern California that has the small Monarch, a vineyard farm. And it's a nice little machine, don't get me wrong, but it has a very specific purpose. It's like 40 something horsepower, I want to say. It's got some cool attachments that go on it, but its runtime and life use until it needs to recharge is quite low. You know, they say, I think I wrote it down there, so they say 4 hours of runtime, or 7 hours of runtime for the LR model, 14 hours for the XLR model. The farm where I was, it's like, this is a cool little thing. It's very quiet, you know, it's for viticulture and fruit and vegetables and stuff. It's perfect. It's narrow. You've got mowers, sprayers, harrows, weeders, etc., all different implements that it can go onto. But it's almost like an ATV, you know, the electric ATVs. It has a limited usage.
It doesn't look much bigger than a golf buggy.
Golf cart, yeah.
It's a golf buggy. You have been outvoted.
It does, and it also looks like it has a frunk.
It does have a front.
It's literally the worst word ever.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah, but it still doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, it was a really nice machine. The producer I went down to see, they quite like it, but they're somewhat disappointed that they don't get the hours out of it that they should.
Right.
So, you know, that's holding them back from adding more electric things to their fleet, because he's like, well, it's nice. California makes us switch this
Right.
electric direction, but overall it's not super practical.
What I've always wondered is, like, why are we switching? It feels like they just want to drive us to just the sudden change, and there's
Clarify they.
no government
Government.
or California, whatever. But they want us to just go electric. Like, there's no transition between it. There's no beefing up your infrastructure. There's no, well, maybe we should have some diesel over electric hybrids type stuff. Like, it's just no. It's going to be all electric.
And I think that's the unfortunate part, is that their realistic time frame is so far out. We are nowhere there in infrastructure. You know, in Michigan, where we are, we're in Southwest Michigan. We're in a rural farming area. We're fortunate we have a good backup generator system, but we constantly have rolling power outages. So, you know, and for us, we're okay. We have the generator. But if you can imagine, as a farmer, you're in Iowa in, you know, harvest season, for instance. Oh, well, you hit a heat wave. Oh, rolling power outage. Sorry, you can't harvest anymore.
Yep.
That's not the reality of farming. Is it's time conducive. When you need to plant, you need to plant.
Right.
You can't just say, oh, we'll just do 6 hours today because that's all the battery can do, and then we're going to drive like maybe 40 miles back to the home farm so that you can plug in and charge. You can no longer leave your piece of machinery in the middle of a field.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, think about it from, you know, if you look at it.
You're no longer going to have fuel trailers. You're going to have charger trailers.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but so we saw at ConExpo, I was at ConExpo last year, one of the most popular guys there had a 52-foot trailer with 2 massive diesel generators and then charging stations on them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
Let's go burn some dinosaurs to charge our
Electric
equipment that's
tractors.
saving the world.
And he was busy at the show. Like, he was a busy guy. And I can understand why, because everyone's being pushed into this electrification, and it's not ready.
It's either that trailer or the already failing infrastructure has to get even more better and be somewhere that it never would have had to have been.
Right.
Out in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
This field where there's no people, but yet you got to have a substation there or you know, at least power running in the ditch.
Well, I mean, maybe you could have like a bar, whatever else, and all the farmers can just
There we
drive their
go.
machinery in and plug them in and charge
Every
them.
Have
10
cox-
miles, there's a bar.
Every 10 miles there's a bar with a charger.
you
Well,
have
we're
to,
here for the
right?
next 3 hours, whether we want to be or not. So, yeah.
I like that. Yeah, even John Deere's website, when you get to their electric side, states that they're not even going to have any options until 2026. And even then, as you read deeper, they're looking at turf
Yeah.
and some options in construction. They don't even put.
No, well, it's construction you're looking at. So again, I go back to ConExpo because that was last year. It's only every 3 years, and this is really a show where you can see where the engine manufacturers and the equipment manufacturers come together with ideas. And for me at that show, Cummins was really the only one who was actually practical about what is achievable in the time frame. So they're transitioning into different types of diesel, we'll call them hybrid engines,
Sure.
Different versions of diesel engines. But it makes no sense. You can't literally go from zero to hero in 10 years. It's,
So it says from New York Times says that Biden wants to have half of all vehicles be electric by 2030. That's 6 years away.
Has he been to Michigan and seen the cars that are on the road there? Like, he could literally just start with saying,
But they're going to bring back cash for clunkers.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yes, I do. I do remember that very vividly. That's an Obama deal, right? 2008, 9-ish?
well,
somewhere
clearly
there?
that didn't get to Michigan.
Right.
They didn't get rid of those clunkers.
Didn't get rid of them
But
at all.
what I'm thinking is, so we're talking about this on the agriculture side, but think of it if all the cars and the semis out on the road crawling across the country, the heartbeat of America, heartbeat of the world, really, half of those have to be electric, and we already have electric cars failing in blizzards and things of that nature. How is that ever going to be a problem or be a possibility?
I don't know. I mean, it was very interesting. At one of the shows I went to, I met the fleet manager from Amazon. And when they had the new Amazon electric, the little weird electric vans, they went to California. They had 200 vans. They all went and did their deliveries. They came back. They all plugged in to charge. Everyone lost power. And then it was like, okay, well, you can't have all 200 here during summer. You're going to have to put some like in Chicago. And so this is California.
Right.
I mean, they're supposed to be setting the standard, but California can't keep the power on in summer. So how is it going to work? Like you said, when everyone has an electric car, you also have, huge problems in California because they want all of the trucks over the road, Class 8s, I think it's from Class 5 up now, to go electric. There's no infrastructure for it. These guys can't charge. As a truck driver, what should you do? You're hour and mileage based. How is that going to work? Oh, well, you get to a charging bank and already 10 guys are charging and then the other 5 chargers don't work, but you're out of hours or out of battery, so you can't drive another 50 miles to the next charging station. There's the practicality of the people making the decisions versus the people actually operating the equipment, running the farms, driving the trucks. There is a huge disconnect for me there. From everything I've listened to, there's this huge disconnect. People make decisions in political positions that have no idea how it actually is. They don't know where their chickens come from or how they can take cereal or bread off the shelf. They don't translate that from one to the other.
Do you have, Tanner, on the farm, do you have one of those banks that charges multiple, like DeWalt or Milwaukee batteries?
Don't you say DeWalt.
Well, neither one of these are free ads. So.
Yeah, but so do you have one of those?
Yes.
And
6.
you plug several batteries
Put
in?
6 of them on
Does
it.
it charge all of them at once or one at a time?
I feel like it goes around. Starts.
Yeah, it starts and charges one all the way.
Yep.
And then goes to the next and it goes to the
Correct.
next. So how is that going to be any different if all these semi-trucks and tractors and cars pull up to this charging bank? Doesn't everyone that hooks on just take a little bit more power?
Yes.
So then it's going to take longer for everyone? Or do you charge the first one? I did hear the other day someone had like a Tesla it was a Ford Lightning, and they charged their truck in like 24 minutes. I don't know how low it was, but that was a lot faster than I thought it would have been.
And then the truck broke down because it's a Ford Lightning.
Probably. Well, Ford's actually they're moving away, aren't they? Did I see? Don't quote that, but I thought I saw a news article this week that said they've actually backed off because they're losing, I don't know what the number, $30,000 per vehicle.
Well, there was
sell.
the automotive blog guy who took the Ford Lightning, and he took it for a road trip. And once he put a load on, the actual distance that he could travel was half.
Yeah.
This is a pickup truck.
Yeah.
You don't drive around with just your shopping in the back of a pickup truck. You put stuff in there, and it wasn't practical.
It's just for seed guys. They got to look the part of having a truck.
That's right.
I'm going Switzerland on the seed, guys. So I'm gonna stay neutral.
But Mike Burkhart sent us a Snapchat. He had a buddy bring his Ford Lightning over, and he got in it, and he mashed it to the floor, and it just sent him to the back.
The torque is don't get me wrong.
The performance,
the performance side of them are cool. Our main office in Austria is all electric, so we have Teslas and smart cars. So we run electric, but in Europe the infrastructure is very different. We don't have overhead power lines. Power runs under the ground, so you don't have a windstorm.
Right.
That takes out a town's power. That just doesn't happen. They run the infrastructure. They spend the money ahead of time to make sure the infrastructure is there.
Right.
But even this summer in Europe, there were problems because there were so many electric cars on the road that people were having to queue and wait to charge their car on summer holidays. Now, you get like a week summer holiday. Do you really want to spend on an 8-hour drive? You're spending an extra 2 hours because you have to now wait for charging.
Correct. Yeah, that's not any good. I did pull that up. So Ford, about a month ago, announced that they're cutting their Ford Lightning production in half, and will follow market demand after that. So instead of producing 3,200 trucks per week, they're going down to 1,600 F-150 Ford Lightnings. Mm-hmm. They will continue to match production with customer demand.
Which means they only make it when you order it.
Yep.
That's what all the manufacturers are. The tractor manufacturers are going to anymore.
Yeah.
So as we get back though to electric in agriculture, off-road, where out of your conversations do you see a fit?
I mean, I think, for general work, if it's close to the farm, so if you're looking at, your ATVs, maybe forklift, you have, the small telehandlers, compact equipment, I think there's definitely a market for the compact equipment. Let's call them the hobby farmer, for want of a better term, someone with 5, 10, 20, 30 acres, because they're not having to logistically plan for seasons and planting and harvest. They're just using it to move around and do daily stuff with, and they get back to the shed at night and they can, plug it in and charge for the next day. This, I think there's a market for, definitely. In fruit and vegetables, those kind of things, you're producing fruit. Electric is nice in that environment when it comes to fruit and vegetables. You're not having the diesel, you're not having the noise, but it's limited. It's really going to be a limited market. I really can't see from all of the meetings that I've done how they are going to translate from being around a home farm situation where you can go back in of a nighttime into the workshop and plug in and charge to how modern farming works now. I don't know a customer of ours that literally farms just at home. They lease land, 70 miles this way, 30 miles that way. I'm guessing, it's the same everywhere. That's the reality of modern farming.
What would you say? How many miles from east to west are you spread? Because that's your biggest gap, right? East to west?
Yeah, 20 miles, and, well, the farm that I don't farm, that'd be 50 miles. But
yeah. So you're potentially a 70-mile spread.
I'm 20 miles both ways, so 40 mile working. But if I had to go farm that other one, it'd be 70.
Yeah. And that's interesting because one of the areas that our listeners have suggested that it might work is on a dairy. It's routine. You're always at home base. It's just a matter of, instead of maybe having one tractor for feeding, if you feed all day, you'd have to have multiple because you can't just run all day and charge quick and go back running.
But what if you're pushing silage? These batteries, this system is untested. They're saying things like it will run for 14 hours, but when it's under load and actually has to work, you're now down to 7. Those guys in the big dairies, they are pushing silage 24/7.
Sure.
How is that? You're going to have to double the amount of machinery that you have, or you're going to have interchangeable batteries?
They're going to have to issue permits. I mean, the government's going to have to require
they'll have to pull like a battery trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it should help with compaction. Maybe it's, because it's heavier.
So is the gap, or maybe the what's the word I'm looking for, Corey? The settle the middle point,
Middle ground, yeah.
the middle ground, hybrid.
I think Cummins they seem to have the most realistic approach. You know, they're looking at multiple different, you know, they've got the X15 as the base platform, and they were showing multiple different options because they really understand that what is being asked for is not attainable in that period of time. And it's, you know, largely infrastructure driven. And we all in the US, we know that the infrastructure here is archaic. You know, we have farmers that can't even get decent internet. So if they can't get decent internet,
Oh, Elon's fixing that.
Right, but without creating the infrastructure.
yeah, that you know, we're going to harness where are you going to put solar panels? How many solar panels is it going to require? And then as we found in Michigan, when we wanted to put solar panels on the workshop, is that our local infrastructure, we can't send it back to the grid because our infrastructure is too old to make it sense for it to be sent back. So then what you then, as a farmer, okay, so you invest $300,000 in photovoltaic panels. You then have to invest in battery backup. So your return on investment, by the time those solar panels have actually paid for themselves, you need to throw them in the trash and buy new ones. You know, you've really got a 10-year functioning lifespan on the solar panels. It just, at the moment, it's not making commercial sense. I get the idea, and I think it's a great concept. Yes, we need to do something, but there's a clear line in the sand between practical and dreaming. And I think the government is at that dreamer stage. They're going, oh, well, let's all go electric.
Right.
It'll be fabulous. Yeah, well, when people don't eat,
Yeah.
because the trucks can't transport anything, the farmers can't grow anything, what happens when people can't eat? You know,
Yeah.
we end up in apocalypse. Things get nasty.
That's what I mean. They just want to jump to the end goal and never work our way there. Where, you know, we should be working on, why do we have diesel exhaust fluid in our diesel engines? and we're saving the world, but yet Australia and Europe and all these other countries, they just have tier 3 engines, right?
Australia has tier 2-ish.
Tier 2-ish. Yeah,
Ish.
I heard an Australian John Deere sprayer a couple miles from here that was heading over there, and I'm like, oh, I forgot what that sounds like.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, it is.
You know, like, I can tell
like a
that
real
thing's got
sprayer.
power. Yeah, that thing sounds like it's gonna, you know, be able to breathe and
it's
work.
like the difference between a German Shepherd barking and a Chihuahua.
Yeah.
There's like a big difference in the noise.
So why? I mean, we just need to get rid of that. Then we can start talking about electric.
Yeah, you can have your electric motors as long as we get rid of DEF.
Yeah. I would love to see a case study of all the plastic they've used for that crap, all the every tractor you look at that's 6 years old, you know, that had hired help, it's rusted.
Yeah.
Everywhere where they poured that crap. That ain't good for nothing.
I think the only way, and California are bringing in legislation, I can't remember the exact wording now, but they're looking at making the manufacturers more responsible for a usable lifespan. Until such time as they make the equipment manufacturers responsible for that emission system, you know, for that DEF system, they need to say, all right, you have, if that machine goes down, you have a 5-day time frame to get it fixed and working. And its usable lifespan is 10 years. You need to warranty that emission system for 10 years. You know, once you ask the manufacturers to put their hand in their pocket and start paying out for the rubbish systems that they've been putting out there, and you know what it's like. Mm-hmm. You know, I feel for guys that buy used machinery. And we get calls every day, like literally every day. Driving down here, I had 3 phone calls of people asking, "Can you delete my DEF?" And it's like, no, I'm not. We don't touch emissions. You know, that's a very slippery slope. But I feel for them because it's so expensive to repair and maintain.
Oh, it's terrible.
And do they have the parts? That's the other thing.
Yeah.
You know, we went through a period of time with quality sensors that you might wait 3 months for a quality sensor. That's what do you do with your tractor? Just go out and buy another one?
Right. Well, that's the whole thing with DEF. You add all this extra cost to the machine, sensors, then the stuff's got to be heated to 90-some degrees to go in. Well, guess what? When it was negative 20 out a couple weeks ago, our buddy Casey had to drive to Colorado to pick up it was a Chevy diesel truck, Duramax, and bring it back because it, he had to bring it back with a semi. Got it back here, put it in the shop, heated it up. It was fine.
Yeah.
But it was frozen.
There's
It
a guy
freezes at 11 degrees.
There's a guy parked across the street because he was limited to 5 mile an hour because his DEF system froze.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a pretty common thing. I was up in Montana last year, and the emission system on the piece of equipment that we were on, we're in the middle of like an 1,100 acre field in BFE, Montana.
Yeah.
And we won't say the name of the manufacturer, but the manufacturer system went offline. The DEF system went offline. The machine just shut down and literally died. We're in the middle of a field. And it's like, okay, well, our option is to no cell service.
Yeah.
And because the manufacturer's system had gone offline, no other means of communication.
Well, and even if it's under warranty at that point, what's it matter? You're down.
Yeah, you're
right?
down.
Downtime.
Yeah. And they have such a short window there to get that crop in. He was literally going, I'm dead in the water. I've lost half a day because we had to walk back through a field for over an hour just to get cell service. So we could call somebody, and you've got $1 million piece of equipment sitting in the middle of a field because first of all the DEF system failed, it did something weird to the main system, everything shut down. That's it. That's an expensive paperweight to sit there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how frustrating would that be? Is you've got 10 acres left before the rain's coming, and you're watching your gauge, and instead of doing the cool fuel on the run like you see on TikTok. You're just out of battery.
Yeah.
That's it. You're done.
Yeah, there's no swapping or...
Yeah.
Have you seen our friends at Edison Motors up in Canada?
I don't go to Canada.
You don't have to. We don't go to Canada either. No, they don't let us in, actually.
But that's the reason I don't go.
But this guy is making a vocational semi, is what they would call it in Canada, semi-truck. They're loggers.
Yep.
But it has a smaller, like a C9 Cat engine in it as its power plant. But it is diesel over electric. It's powering electric motors.
I mean, this is the thing is that, again, like I said, they're trying to jump this process. They don't want any diesel.
Yeah.
They just want to jump straight to electric. This makes sense.
Yes.
He can license this as an electric vehicle.
Yeah, but, well, California's not involved yet.
No, but Canada is.
That's like California North.
California, like Canada, doesn't have teeth when it comes to their emissions. They're just like the typical Canadians there.
So he's got a pretty cool thing going on. We've both personally invested into it and making semi-trucks. They do some solar stuff. They are also going to sell kits that you can do it yourself to old trucks. Old pickup trucks. I think like 1 ton and larger, something like that.
Correct.
So what you said it's a C9?
Yeah, it's a C9 Cat. So instead of a C15, and obviously a diesel motor has its peak efficiency at a certain RPM, all that torque and all that, and it can just sit there and run at that and charge its batteries or whatever. And
then they also have generating axles.
Yeah, regenerative braking and all that
I
stuff.
think the downstream technology is going to be interesting. Like, where can you regenerative braking? So that's something that we did with the Tesla at Steinbauer. We were very focused on the regenerative braking because this is lost and wasted power. So for heavy trucking, for instance, if you're doing a north-south run and you're coming through the hills, to be able to charge, you recharge your battery when you're doing the brake as coming down. But there's not enough talk about this. Everyone's just about let's go electric. Well, let's look at it from a whole piece of pie point of view. You've got all of the different pieces of the pie. You can't just go, I want the whole pie. Well, you have to make it first.
This I think is a giant step because you're not relying on the grid.
Yeah.
You can charge it
Right.
if you want.
And the neat part about his application for logging, which is where his focus is starting, is while you're traveling uphill into the mountains, you're unloaded.
Yeah.
So you're at your least load.
Yes.
And that should allow you to use most of your stored battery energy, if not kick in on your diesel generation for that power. Then on your way back down, you can apply your brakes.
Yeah.
Which is not disc brakes, it's resistance. So it's not like you're going to wear the pads out on your brakes.
Right. It's like putting your Jake brake on.
Yep.
Yep.
And you recharge. So by the time you finish your load down at the mill, the way he talks about it,
unloaded, you can go back up the hill.
You can go back
again.
up. And hopefully your diesel generator doesn't have to kick in as much. But if it does, you've got it.
Yeah.
But it works in I think agriculture in local hauls like start stop all the time, city driving, deliveries, things of that nature. But they fully admit going across the United States on an interstate, a diesel motor is
That's pretty efficient.
It's meant to sit at this RPM and get that, and it is you can't get it more efficient than that.
Yeah, and it's obviously I think in time we will get there. But you've got so many factors that everyone, like you said, people just want to jump straight to the electrification. Well, let's have a look at the infrastructure. The roads, machinery is going to be heavier. The trucks are heavier. We've already got terrible roads in the US that they can't rebuild. What's going to happen when you add more to it? I drove from Michigan down to Houston and back over Christmas. I didn't even need two hands to count the amount of Teslas that were doing long-range driving. And I counted 2 off-highway. So I was physically, because some of the work groups that I do, I was physically making a note of if I can pull off the highway, is there somewhere I could charge my car if I was driving an electric car? And I drove the main interstate, 2 places off the highway where I refueled that I would have been able to charge an electric car. Imagine if you're a Class 8 driver or, imagine being a farmer on the back roads. Where are you going to charge to? Are you going to have to load that onto a diesel truck to take it somewhere else because maybe you're a small farmer and you can't afford the infrastructure that's required to charge your machinery at home? So what are they going to do? Like have these banks where farmers can go and charge?
There's been a lot of talk, too, about time-sensitive deliveries, whether it's livestock or we seem to talk about semen a lot on this podcast. But perishable items. She has no context. But I think we've talked about it 3 times today in our recordings. But
you've talked about semen previously, too. I've listened to it.
Yes. Your fellow Australian is exactly why I was bringing this up.
We all know each other. We're all related in Australia.
All of you, yes.
Yeah.
There's only 8 different family strains.
Yeah.
But it really does come into effect when you have a time-sensitive cargo.
Yes.
And
Perishable items.
You have no backup.
Well, you would know driving now that, you get to sometimes where the trucks can pull in and stop. There's nowhere for them to park now.
Right.
And so then the driver has to judge, well, do I risk it and try and drive the extra 50 miles to the next stop where maybe I can pull in and stop or not? What will happen when there's charging involved? They'll plug in to charge and the driver's going to have a little snooze or
Right.
I don't think the planning, there's not been enough planning done from the logistics side of it as to where is the infrastructure. Okay, farms aren't on main highways. Most farmers I know, I drive off a main highway to go
Right.
and visit them. How will that work? What happens? It's planting season. You've got bad weather coming in. You're already late. Your insurance is going to run out. And then all of a sudden something happens to the power grid, someone runs into a post, you've lost power, you can't, what happens then?
I didn't even think about that. A power outage, same
You
situation.
ain't going nowhere.
So then how does that affect the insurance side of it? What happens to crop insurance if you've switched to electric, you're down to the wire to get the rest of your seed in before your insurance turns off and you have a power outage? I mean, you could have a tornado that comes through, you don't know, and then all the power's gone. Is the insurance company going to go, okay, we'll cover you because you're electric?
I mean, I'm even thinking about livestock guys that purposely put gas tractors on their feed wagons because of the cold winters. Mm-hmm. They don't want to rely on a diesel motor to get gelled up.
Yep.
You put a battery or electric-powered tractor, same thing. You have cold temperatures, your battery cracks.
What was it, 3 weeks ago? We had those
Yeah.
insane, nasty, I'd like to forget temperatures.
So I did look up.
But that's like normal for Canada.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have huge fields in Canada.
Yeah.
You know, they've got massive fields. What are they going to do? Pull the diesel generator out into the middle of a 2,000-acre field just so that the guy can charge the tractor to keep going
Hook up an
again?
extension
And
cord.
what at that point, what is the point? We're burning coal, we're burning diesel, we're burning natural gas, whatever to create this power to look like we have reduced emissions when it's just passing the buck.
It was, I was watching the TikTok thing. I don't do TikTok, as you can probably tell the TikTok thing. And this guy had a really valid point. He said if the US government was so concerned about emissions, they would bring in immediately. President could sign his little piece of paper that he can sign and say, right, every state, like in order to drive a car on the road or a truck on the road in the US, you must have an annual safety and emissions inspection. That would literally get rid of about 30% of the crud that is running around on the road now. When I was coming here, the guy that I was sitting behind, it was like sucking on a diesel pipe because he was missing part of everything, and it was just this huge thing of black smoke coming out the back.
Yeah.
Start there. There's a good starting point. Let's get rid of all of the things on the road that shouldn't be on the road. Let's not worry about the tier 4 final farmer, that's got equipment and is trying to do the right thing and is trying to juggle, DEF and the cost of new machinery and, well, I have to buy a bigger horsepower because the engine's choked up, so now I need more power. Let's not worry and penalise him. Let's start at the start with you have got 30% of the cars on the road in the US that shouldn't be on the road. They are rusted out. We have friends in Boone, and they sometimes can't even put a car on a lift because it's so rusted out that if they lift the car, it's literally going to fall apart. Start there. Start there and make it affordable for people to purchase a car that runs better.
Well, and they haven't done anything to make cars more affordable. I can tell you that.
Cars have got more expensive.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just looking at basically USDA's energy division for grants for alternative fuel motors. And it's a nice long scrolling list of different ways, from a truck emissions reduction grant to a used EV vehicle purchasing grant.
Really?
Tax credits across the board for fuel cells and pre-owned EVs. Obviously,
you look at Hertz, for instance. Hertz went out on a limb and bought all of the Teslas for for hire cars. They're now selling them all. They dumped 20,000 Teslas on the used market because they were unreliable. They weren't getting the range, because people don't understand there's a change in mindset when it comes to how you use that electric vehicle. You can no longer drive at, just because they say you have a 300-mile range, that's 300 miles, maybe at 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So you get in and drive 90 miles an hour, that range obviously becomes less. You have the air conditioning on at 60.
Yeah.
Your range becomes less.
or you Mike Burkhardt it and just
It's
punch
300 miles in a vacuum,
Yeah.
in a controlled environment.
Yeah, so translate that to agriculture. So, okay, well, you can't put a bigger implement on because we only tested it with a small one. So this tractor, okay, it can take a 12-row corn header, but you can only use an 8, otherwise you'll only run for 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's the direct translation. So how does that work?
Can you imagine if you only could work for 2 hours?
I mean, think about this, right? I'm gonna label off different farm equipment types. Imagine a electric driven harvester,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
What for all that diesel motor does? You think you could get 2 hours out of a battery that would fit in the
No,
same
you got to
compartment?
drive it. You got to run the head.
Everything.
You got to run all your separators, your rotor, your feed accelerator, your feeder house, your elevator, your fans out the back, spreading the chaff.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Air conditioning.
all
You
being-
can't harvest
Yes.
without air conditioning.
Well, my father-in-law said that it's impossible.
Yeah.
It quit because he didn't have air conditioning.
Then you got to unload. Unloading on the
Oh,
well,
jeez.
if you unload on the go, it's only an hour.
What about sprayers?
Well, drones.
Yeah.
Drones are. I mean,
The drones now, the drone technology is really, and it uses way less, chemical too.
right. So this is a perfect use case. And look at what the drone guys have done. That's all electric. They have trailers
Of batteries.
with 10 batteries that they're constantly charging with gas generators.
Yeah.
Still using fossil fuels.
Still burning dinosaurs.
Yeah, to do it, but they do make it work. But can you imagine? Those batteries are pretty big for those big spray. They're heavy. Imagine that for a combine. You'd have to have a freaking end loader.
But it's the same. The Sandvik equipment that we saw at ConExpo, they have a special machine with like the go-go gadget arms to pull the battery in and out. So now as a farmer, if the machinery comes with an interchangeable battery, you now have to have an extra piece of machinery
To change
the battery.
Right.
So where does that money come from? How much is that piece of machinery going to take, or the retrofitting of something that you already have to get the correct attachment to lift the battery in and
Right.
out?
When we were out of power for 7 or 8 days during the Tradie show, Mid-America Power came out here to Syngenta and brought like 1 or 2 full semi-size generators. And they still said, do not turn your air conditioners on from this time to this time or whatever. That was just like basic power for this town.
Yeah.
It's
We are power hungry society. In the US, most people realistically, they live indoors. I drive around the US and it's very different to Australia where, we embrace the outdoors. We grill outside. We have outdoor living rooms. Basically, here in the US, it's very HVAC, temperature controlled. Well, I'm not talking about now. I mean, Lord, I nearly froze when I got out of the car here. It's like the wind cuts you in
Because
half.
you got a hole in your pocket.
That's because I got a hole
It's
in my
literally
pocket.
got to be one of the warmest February 2nds of.
That is
of-
not warm outside. I challenge you to do a naked run
It's
down
like
the street.
4. It's like 4. No one will see that. It's like 40 degrees out.
It'll
today.
be dark soon. It'll be fine.
She's not wrong. It is almost dark.
We can put a spotlight on your head.
So what?
Jed.
So what's Steinbauer's role in this?
Look, I think it's important for us to stay in touch with the meetings, and hence the reason I attend them. I can't say it's a fun thing to do. It's not every girl's dream to sit there and listen to someone drone on about electric technology when they've never seen a farm for a day in their life. Their idea of a farm is to look on Google Earth and take a picture and go, oh, well, I went to that farm and it worked there. Mm-hmm. I think we need to make sure that we're informed so that when I'm asked the customer by a question, hey, we're going to have to move to electric. Where makes the most sense for me? Because a lot of what I do, what a lot of people are not aware of, is that we have people that ring us all of the time and say, hey, I'm trying to choose between this machine and this machine, or, should I, is it a good time now to trade in? Should I go to the new 13.6 John Deere, or should I stay with what I know? We get asked those questions all the time. I can't help people if I'm not educated. And Steinbauer has always been about investing in new technology and looking forward. Our way of looking forward in this is making sure we're informed so that when we're asked the question, and even in these forum groups, and you guys know me, I'm straight down the line, and you often get government bureaucrats, straight out of university with 0 time on a farm and 0 practical experience. They will ask me, oh, why don't you think this is practical? I'm like, when was the last time your ass sat in a combine for 16 hours? Because you've got rain coming in and you need to get it off. And, this is just how we approach things.
What do you think? So we've talked about the big stuff, but we haven't talked about okay, say we've got the infrastructure and we've got the technology. Now all of a sudden we've got mechanics that need to know, because I assume diesel's not going to go away, at least not right away. So we got mechanics got to know tractors and cars that are 50 years old. And now they have to have an engineering degree in electronics to be able to work on this stuff.
We already have a
What's
big
the shop rate going to be?
Yeah. We have a big disconnect with we don't have enough technicians as it is. You know, that there's been a dramatic underfunding and a lack of importance placed on people that repair things. So we already have...
We're in a throwaway culture anyway.
Yeah, but you look at John Deere, for instance. You know, why has Fendt become so popular in some of the areas of the Midwest? Because they have a great program. They guarantee 24 hours that they will be out there with a technician to fix it, versus some of, John Deere and Case, some customers sit and wait for a week before they can even get a technician. I spoke to a customer at the Custom Harvesters Convention last week, and they waited 12 days from when the technician came out to when they got the parts. This is 12 days. These guys earn money by acre. The quicker that they can get stuff done and move to the next property, that's how they make their money. You can't afford to sit with a machine down for 12 days because they don't have a part.
Right.
And I think this is where the disconnect is. So where will you get these people from? We already don't have technicians that can do diesel and repair that. Where are you going to get electric technicians from? Where?
Yeah, I don't know, because you're going to have to pull them from
In
electrical
my-
engineering somewhere
out of my
else.
pocket.
Yeah. All the good stuff comes out of the pocket.
Everything comes out of the pocket.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. You guys get exposed to this. It's just I sit there, on my way down today, I stopped at one of the ag colleges to talk to diesel students. And already the kids feel that they're undervalued by going into a diesel program. And for me, this is fundamentally wrong. We will have diesel engines for the next 50 years. I mean, you look at some of the stuff. My telehandler on the farm in Michigan, bless this thing, she's just about as old as I am, but she runs great.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is, if they feel undervalued, they need to bring in a couple of farmers as speakers to tell them immediately how valuable a good tech is.
Yeah.
Because if I can sit there and call somebody and have them come work on it within the day, it's extremely valuable.
It is. But their value comes from society, and all that they're hearing is electrification. Diesel's bad, get away from diesel. Like I said earlier, the reality is when people go hungry, this is when shit will literally go south.
Yeah.
And when the trucks can't haul the food, the farmers can't grow the food, this is going to be a serious problem.
Right.
And this is my biggest fear, is that they're going to try and push it so fast that they've forgotten that you can't walk into a store and it's not related to a farmer or a truck driver.
Yep.
That is literally how we all survive. And that's just, at the end of the day, the reality.
Yeah, and another thing is we don't know the longevity. We know electric motors are pretty reliable as an electric motor, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's as reliable as the energy coming into it. But we don't know how it's going to be in these applications or how long they're going to last. You said we're in a throwaway society. Diesel, we know. Those engines, they last. What Chase at Edison Motors told us, they got Cat motors up in Alaska that are running like engine or missile silos and stuff
24/7
that have been running since the Cold War.
Yeah.
And they're still going.
Yeah, they're running literally at peak performance.
Yeah.
And they don't shut off.
Yep.
And I think that's probably a good question is, electric in how we're using it now. I mean, yes, there was, electric previously. How we're using the electric engine and what we're trying to ask it to do now is such an unknown quantity. I mean, as a farmer, say they come out to you and go, okay, well, your S790, you are now going to have to spend $1.5 million because it's now electric. And
Right.
after 5 years, you're now going to have to spend $500,000 to replace the batteries and really?
Right. Why not just on my hog barns? If I'm running a feed motor at its peak, and it's 1 horsepower feed, it lasts forever. But as soon as I start trying to variable frequency, take it down, especially like fans and stuff like that, immediately that life of that motor is like cut in half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice with the batteries. So we have at the Steinbauer main office, we took Tesla batteries that we use for our own battery backup because the whole, our main office in Austria is a net zero building. So everything is net zero that comes out of there. Everything's covered in solar panels. But we were able to take batteries from Teslas there's only so many used batteries. I mean, every farmer in America is going to need to buy used batteries, then the price of the used batteries goes through the roof. It just, the cost will become unattainable for most people.
And all the products that go into the batteries, the mining and all of that stuff, and then the battery junkyards.
No,
None of that.
No, you don't talk about that. That's because it's green energy. We don't talk about the stuff that you need to build the batteries.
It starts
lithium
before and after that, yeah.
Yeah. Hasn't some people said that, so we've got okay batteries now, but actually the battery technology needs to get better
Yes,
before
way better.
really we can lean on this that heavy.
Yeah, I still come back to the guy from Cummins. I listened to him speak a couple of times, and he's realistic at 2050. By 2050, we'll probably have our stuff together where it's a realistic target. But, this 2026, 2030, they're dreaming.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. I see it in the smaller applications, like your small compact utility equipment. It will have a place, but as far as, big farming as we know it, I think we're still a long way off.
And then I have no idea what the stockpiles of the material needed for those batteries are, and I'm sure we'll discover new things to make them better. But we know how much, we probably don't know how much fossil fuels we have. It sounds like we have a ton.
Australia is going to be literally a hole in the that's it, because that's half of the mines are in Australia. We're just going to be a great
big hole. It's going to be the next ocean.
Yeah, it'll be the next ocean. We'll just have around the edge, we'll have a levee, which is the east coast and the west coast. The rest of it is they're just going to have to dig it up to make electric batteries.
That's wild. Well, I think we talked through a lot of this, and we didn't have a good answer. We didn't drive necessarily farm profitability. I think if you're going to go and make a electric motor purchase for a key piece of your equipment, that you should really think through the steps, think through your options. If you're in California, I did find a grant. You can replace motors on agricultural equipment.
Have fun with that paperwork.
Absolutely.
Now, there's a lot of REAP grants that you can do to replace stuff on the farm. Yeah.
So there is funding opportunities.
There's funding opportunities out there, and it's the same for off-road equipment, for farming and construction equipment. There are, programs available there for that. It's just, I'm still not seeing a cost, your return on investment. You're still a long way off. And farming, farming, trucking, you run on such a tight red line as it is.
Right.
Where is the extra money going to come from?
Right. Yeah, our margins are so tight.
But everyone was the cost of fertilizer that killed people when that just skyrocketed. Mm-hmm. Because the first electric farming pieces of equipment that are coming out, these are not going to be cheap.
Yeah,
you're going to be paying premium for those.
Well, then you make the payloaders and the trucks and all that are mining the fertilizer, and the trucks to get it, and the trains and the boats to get it there have to be electric. You can't have an electric barge. Ain't no way.
Yeah,
to go across the world.
Can you imagine the container ships? I'll end up having to put people in there to row again. Oh, sorry, boys. It's been cloudy for 2 weeks.
Here we are again doing this while the rest of the world probably isn't even working on it. And then they're going to be able to get ahead because they have all this cheap.
India is a prime example.
Yeah.
India and China are prime examples. Look at Africa. I mean, that's a whole other disaster in a bucket right there.
Yep.
So, we're literally in the developed world going to be holding back our farmers to let these developing nations come forward, because you're going to regulate everything here so much that no one's going to want to be a farmer. Your kids are not going to want to grow up and go, hey, Dad, I'm going to take over the farm.
Yeah.
They're going to go, no, sell it off. I don't want to have
We should create the policy
jacket.
as soon as the Humvees and the tanks and the F-16s and all that are all electric, then maybe we'll think about it.
Yeah.
I doubt that's going to happen, right?
Wait for the military to switch over, and then you'll jump on board.
Yeah, doubt it. They don't have to run DEF.
No.
Wonder why that is.
I'm going to take the fifth.
Because when your life's on the line, you ain't going to frickin',
probably
hope
end it
pray
right
on
there.
that.
Yes.
On that note.
Somebody's going to flag this if we go any further on that.
Yep.
Well, thank you.
Yep, I hope it was, it's always nice to have a chat about. It's for me, it's a really interesting concept, and as much as I like the thought process behind the electrification, I just can't see how we're going to get there in farming and so forth. You just have to look at California with their dryage issue that they have with the electric trucks. That tells you that we're not even close.
I will be out there in a week. We'll set them straight.
Well, that's if you're not in an electric vehicle to get to the farm show.
I
don't
can't
think we
believe.
got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think we got an electric vehicle.
No.
Please, I would like to see you both in an electric smart car.
I would love to drive a Tesla with a Steinbauer on it.
Well, sure.
Yeah, you can. The red one can drift.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. That's nice. But just like make sure you've not got a full stomach or whatever. If you're gonna, she sucks you back in the seat pretty good.
That sounds like a lot of fun. But I had a pleasure. I never would have guessed 5 years ago when we started this podcast we'd be talking about electric motors and the future of agriculture.
Right.
But I'm glad that we did because it's going to put a lot of things into perspective for our listeners. And glad we had your insights.
I enjoy being here. I don't like either of your company, but you know, I was just driving by, so why not?
Wow.
It's good. She saw all the fancy pictures of the studio and just had to come see it.
Yep.
That was it.
Yep.
I like it. Well, I think we talked long enough about this. Should we tell the listeners have a good one?
Yeah.
All right. Have a good one.